Hey everybody, welcome up to Fired Up in Faith. If you're new here, I'm Emma. I am going into my sophomore year at Purdue, and I figured I would take this kind of back to school period right before people are heading to college or heading back to college, to kind of just talk about what Christianity looks like while you're in a university. Honestly, this is something that I wish someone would have kind of talked about, or that I would have found more resources on last year when I was going into my freshman year. And so I just figured I would make a video about it and kind of talk about some things that definitely would have helped me going in that I think other people should know, especially if you're going into your freshman year or you are going back to college with a new relationship with Jesus, whether you've been renewed or you are just getting started on this journey. I would love to tell you about how you can translate your faith into your everyday at college. So just kind of getting into it, I grew up in the church, so I always my entire life heard this thing of oh, everyone goes to college and they leave the church and they become all these sinful people and all this stuff. And to some extent, yes, that is true. And I think a lot of times the church kind of pushes away young people because they don't necessarily understand it, or what it's necessarily like to live life as a young person now. I've been home over the summer, and this is absolutely nothing against my home church or anything like that, but there just haven't really been many opportunities for me as a young person to lead in the church or to just kind of get involved a little bit more. Given I haven't necessarily been seeking that out to the extent I should be. I've been, very preoccupied this summer. But I feel especially within the church, if you're not at a church on a college campus, there's most likely not a young adult problem. Or there's not a young adult program is what I'm trying to say, not problem. So my home church, we have a youth group, we have kids ministries, and then on the other hand, we've got, Bible studies and meetups and women's groups and support groups, but those are all for 24 and up women, they're maybe married, they have kids, they're retired, they've been through life, they've seen all of it, and I don't necessarily feel I fit into or belong in those groups of women. There's definitely wisdom and knowledge to be gained from those types of groups, and I think that on some level they are great, but also you need to be around people who are your own age and who are going through similar things to you in order to fully grow and to feel understood. So I feel as someone who is in the church, I personally would like to see more young adult movements within the church and programs that are led by the church leaders that are directed towards people from the ages of 19 to 24. I think it would make such a huge difference, honestly, and it would help so many people who are my age to come back to the church or to stay within the church. Because, as I was graduating last year, 2 years ago, I guess now. No, it was last year. I don't even know. When I was graduating high school, I had so many people in the church tell me 3/4 of people who leave the church to go to college don't ever come back to the church, or they were listing statistics and numbers at me. It was kind of crazy. And I was oh, I don't have to worry about that. I'm a rooted Christian. False, okay? The college transition, going from high school to college, is, in my opinion, one of the hardest transitions that a person can go through. You have no friends, you have no money, you have no idea what's going on for an entire year. Entirely freshman year, you're basically just going to be confused. And the only way you're going to get through it is with other people. So even though I am a very rooted Christian, I grew up in the church, I've been in the church for my entire 19 years of life. I woke up one Sunday morning in the middle of the semester, first semester fall, and realized I hadn't been to church in 2 months. And I was wait, oh. Because honestly, I had just been so busy and I just kept putting it off. I would wake up at maybe 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings and be oh, I'm so tired, or oh, I was out the night before, or man, I have this assignment due tomorrow. And I would put off going to church. I'd be okay, I'll go next week, because I didn't have a church yet. I hadn't established where I wanted to go. There wasn't a church specifically for the denomination that I wanted, which I'm currently non-denominational. It doesn't matter to me. The only thing that matters is that you praise Jesus. So I had never really explored denominations too much. I'd never had that experience. It was always just like, well, this is our denomination, so we're going to that church. So, I woke up and I was like, okay, I haven't been to church in like 2 months. It's been at least a month since I've even like thought about picking up my Bible. Like, this needs to change. So I decided that the next Sunday, I just picked myself up. I hauled myself to some random church on campus. It ended up being a Lutheran church, which is not my vibe necessarily. I think it's really cool and it's a really interesting culture. I personally just did not connect with it on the level that I feel like you need to actually be a part of that culture. So I kind of backed off a bit. I started watching just like some live streams of churches in the area online, or my home church's live stream, which is also a great option if you aren't necessarily comfortable going into a physical church, or if you are in a position like me where you just didn't know where to go. So I did eventually end up finding my current boyfriend, my now boyfriend. When we first started kind of hanging out, going out, he invited me to go to church with him. He goes to one of the churches on campus that I've been kind of afraid to try because it's more modern, and I just never really experienced something like that, and I was kind of scared to try it. So I went with him, and I ended up loving it and just loving the community there, and I'm definitely hoping to get more involved with that community this semester. But honestly, just the biggest thing I would say is when you get to campus, just establish that routine of going to church. So whether you have a list of churches in the area that you're wanting to try and you go through those lists and then circle back to the ones you like, or you just literally pick whatever church is closest to your dorm building and you go to it for a couple weeks and see how you like it. Just establish that routine of like, okay, on Sunday mornings I go to church. I think it's just really important. So kind of moving back to that transition period, I feel like the reason that so many people kind of leave the church is they A, don't even realize they're doing it, and that B, when you are in a situation where you're being challenged, where there are new things happening, when just your life is shifting around, and I've seen this in so many different parts of my life, is that when there are moving pieces, my faith is the first thing that goes out the window. Like, yes, I still believe in God. Yes, I still, I'm still a Christian. I'm still saved. But when everything's moving around, I'm not like, okay, I'm going to sit back and watch this happen. And this is just part of who I am. This is my personality, is that I kind of turn away from God and I'm like, why are you letting everything fall apart? And I try to like pull everything back together on my own when I realized that he was making spaces for things that I need. He was making spaces for new things to come into my life. So I think that just through that college transition during freshman year, it's so easy for the enemy to get into our lives and to just grab a hold of us and pull us away from God, pull us away from the church, pull us away from people who are trying to hold us accountable and who are trying to make us into better Christians and help us in our walk with God. It's so easy to not even realize that you are fully walking away from everything you believe in. So just definitely keeping yourself accountable, keeping yourself mindful, staying within that kind of, like that box of Christianity at first, and seeing it as more releasing than restraining. When you go to college, you get to pick your identity. No one knows you most likely, or like 1 or 2 people at your campus do. It's just like you get to pick who you are, you get to pick how you portray yourself, you get to pick how you are perceived. And if you pick that Jesus is your identity, if you pick that Christianity is a core part of you, other people will see that and other people will lean into you. Honestly, when I started living for God at campus and at Purdue, I had so many people who just kind of naturally seemed to gravitate towards me. I became more of a leader within group projects. I became more of an essential part of friend groups. I had people who wanted to talk to me about things that they wouldn't have talked to me about otherwise. I had close friends who, weren't necessarily talking about religion within our friend groups, suddenly opening up about religious questions that they had. And I thought that was so great. And I found so much community through just openly living my faith. So I would definitely just like, even at a, atheist school, I mean, Purdue is not a Christian university. And honestly, in my opinion, that's the best thing I could have done. I had so many people who were worried about me for going to an atheist school, or for it's not a Christian university. Anyone can go there. All religions, all cultures are welcome. Honestly, that's one of the best things I've ever experienced, because I grew up in such like kind of a bubble, and that was great. And I'm glad that I had that experience. But now I'm kind of getting a very safe, very user-friendly introduction to what life is like. You're going to have people who are completely opposed to your religion. You're going to have people who your religions and your beliefs don't line up, and you just have to go with that. I mean, just seeing that people are people and respecting different people's beliefs is such a core part of life, and such a core part of Christianity, honestly, because if we're being judgy, that's defeating the whole point, So honestly, this experience of going to this non-Christian university and opening myself up to being like, this is who I am a Christian, I am a follower of Christ, and seeing how people have responded to that has been amazing. And it has been so encouraging to see how many other people my age are actually Christians. There are these lights in the community, and I can see them working through other people and through the church. And it's such an incredible experience, I feel like, to have in your early adulthood, is to see that you're not alone in your faith, you're not alone in your beliefs, and to have other people who are there to support you. And the best way to get that community is by going to church. You're going to find the most concentrated area of people who believe similar things to you, if not the same things. People who are willing to call you on stuff when you are not being the best in your faith. People who are willing to sit down and read the Bible with you. People who are willing to form groups. People who want to be around you because they are also going through the same thing. It is so fundamental to go to church and find your groups and just honestly be intentional about being involved. Just honestly be a light in your community, and you can just do that by going to church. That's like kind of the first base step. I would also just recommend to be courageous in your faith. And this is something that I personally have been praying for myself in, is that courage and conviction, courage in my faith. When I, first semester and even part of like spring semester, I was just so nervous to be like, oh, well, I don't want people to think I'm weird because I'm a Christian, or I don't want people to treat me differently because I'm a Christian, which can happen occasionally, but I feel like it's part of who I am, so I shouldn't hide it. I've definitely grown in my courage, especially regarding Christ and talking about my faith. So I would challenge you to read your Bible at least once a week when you're in college, whether that's just in your dorm or you go to a public space and read your Bible. I would be very intentional with finding public spaces to read my Bible in, whether that was going to a bubble tea shop and, getting all dressed up and having a little like date with Jesus night, or just going to like a Panera and getting my lunch and taking half an hour to just sit there and read my Bible. I would have people come up to me and like actually tell me, I feel Jesus through you. I've had people come up to me and talk to me, and we were able to connect and meet and talk about Jesus, talk about our faith, become friends. And it's just been such, like, it's an outward appearance. When you are reading your Bible, it is an outward show of like, you actually believe what you're saying you believe in. People who don't even know you are able to draw conclusions about your beliefs and who you are as a person, and you are seen as almost a lighthouse of you are this safe light just beaming out into your community, and people kind of see you as that grounded, firm, steady person who they can trust, they can talk to, they can lean into. And as a Christian, that's how you make connections, is people trust you, people open up to you, and it's such an amazing thing to experience. I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to talk to, of like, just be open with your faith, get yourself to church, and connect with other people in your community, because there are other people who believe the same thing you do. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below or head over to my Instagram, Fired Up in Faith. I would love to correspond with you guys. I would love to connect. And I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day. Thank you.